Today you will be working on the 7th grade math STAAR mock review. I'm going to show you how to set up the problems, but I'm not going to give you the answers. You will complete that on your own. Number 1 says triangle ABC is similar to triangle XYZ. What is the value of M in, I think it should say triangle. There are two triangles in this picture. There's a big one and there's a little one, and I strongly recommend that you redraw them. So this is the big triangle, and the measurements on the big triangle are 15, and then from C to A you kind of have to add the 4 and the 12, which makes 16. And then there's a little triangle inside it, and from Z to X, that is 12. And from Y to Z is an M. And if you'll set it up like that, it'll help you to identify the two fractions that you will need to use in your proportion. A proportion is two fractions equal to each other. So we're going to put the little triangle on top and the big triangle numbers on bottom. So for this first one right here, the big triangle number is 15 and the little triangle number was M. For the other one, the big triangle is 16 and the little triangle is 12. And then you'd need to solve the proportion. Number 2, a circle has a diameter of 5.7 feet. Which measurement is closest to the circumference of the circle in feet? We have a circle, and the diameter goes all the way across, and it's 5.7. And if you use your formula sheet, you'll find that there are two formulas for circumference. One of them is pi times diameter, and the other one is 2 times pi times radius. Well, since they gave us the diameter, I think we should use the formula that has the diameter in it. And then all you have to do is plug in the numbers. The number we used for pi is 3.14, and the number we're going to use for the diameter is 5.7. And you can solve from there. Number 3, a model of a carnival game board is shown. The side lengths of the game board and diameter of the holes in the game board are labeled. What is the best estimate of the area in square inches of the game board that does not include the holes in the board? So we want to find the area of this triangle without those circles. So we're going to find the area of a triangle and subtract the area of the circle. There's 3 circles though. So what's the formula for area of a triangle? And for the area of a circle, pi times radius squared. But there's 3 of them, so we'll have to multiply that times 3. And then we want to plug in the numbers. 1/2 times the base of the triangle times the height of the triangle minus 3. And the number that we use for pi is 3.14 times the radius. Is 6 the radius? No, the radius would be halfway across the circle. So half of 6 is 3. And this is supposed to be 3 squared because it's radius squared. And then all you have to do is solve that. Number 4. At the county fair, tickets can be purchased to participate in different activities. The table shows the total cost for different numbers of tickets. Which is the constant of proportionality that relates Y, the cost in dollars, to X, the number of tickets? Constant of proportionality is also called rate. So just trying to figure out what's the cost per ticket. That's all. And remember, we use something, change of Y over change of X, to find rate or constant of proportionality. We also drew little carets on the side to help us, or we subtracted the two numbers. Either way, it's the same thing. So the Y's go on top, and the X's go on bottom. Or you could subtract them over here. 9 minus 3 is 6. And 12 minus 4 is 4. And then you need to simplify that, and it's going to be something dollars per ticket. Number 5. Which number line best represents the solution to the inequality 3.3 times W minus 9 greater than negative 22.2? Remember solving these? We practiced them so much. We're going to do the opposite, and we get rid of the constant or the single guy first. So we're going to do the opposite of minus 9, which is plus 9. That's going to make those cancel, and 3.3W comes straight down. The inequality symbol comes straight down. And then on the right, that's a negative 22.2 plus a 9. So since they are not the same sign, we're actually subtracting. And we're going to take the sign of the larger, and I can see from this that the larger number is the 22, the negative. So my answer is going to be negative. And if you subtract those, you get the next step would be to do the opposite of multiplying, which is dividing both sides by 3.3. The inequality symbol stays the same. And then our answer is going to be negative, because a negative divided by a positive makes a negative. Once you get that answer, you look for it on the number line. W is on the big side because the alligator is eating him. Number 6. Didier has 60 pictures in an album on his phone. Of these pictures, 48 show his friends, 10 show his family, and 2 show only Didier. Didier is in half of the pictures that show his friends and half of the pictures that show his family. Based on this information, which statement is true? Well, first of all, let's get rid of these fractions. It says Didier is in half of the pictures that show his friends. So half of the 48 would be 24. And then it says he's in half of the pictures that show his family. Well, half of the family pictures are 10. Half of 10 is 5. Choice A says the probability of randomly selecting a picture that does not show Didier is 29%. Well, if he's in 24, then he must not be in the other half, which is 24. And if he's in 5, he must be not in 5. And if we add those together, we get 29. That's 29 pictures, not 29%. He's in 29 out of 60. Well, we could work that out, but I can see that 29 is almost half of 60, and that would be 50%. So that's not the correct answer. The probability of randomly selecting a picture that shows Didier with his friends is greater than the probability of randomly selecting a picture that shows Didier with his family. So are the number of pictures he is with his friends greater than the number of pictures he's with his family? I can safely say that 24 might be bigger than 5. That might be right, but we need to check the rest of them. C says the probability of randomly selecting a picture that shows Didier is 2%. Well, he was in 24, and he was in 5, and he was in 2 alone. 24 plus 5 plus 2 makes 31. That's 31 out of 60. Again, that's pretty close to 50%, not 2%. The last one, the probability of randomly selecting a picture that shows Didier with his family is 5 times the probability of randomly selecting a picture that shows only his friends. Well, he was only in 5 pictures and his friends were in 24. So is 5 times greater than 24? Don't think so. Number 7, which of these does not represent the distance a car travels when going 55 miles per hour? 55 miles per hour. So 55 per means times. So 55 times however many hours. Does A show multiplication? B, if I multiply 1 times 55, would I get that answer? What about if I multiplied 1.5 times 55, would I get these numbers? On C, it says 3 hours. So if I multiply 55 times 3, would I get this answer? And here on D, I know your copy is not very clear, so I'm going to blow mine up. At 1, would I get? That's about 55. At 2, would I get about 110? At 3, that's about 165. Which one does not work? Number 8, what equation best represents the relationship between x and y in the graph? Remember that equation that we used? Y equals m times x plus b. Remember, m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So we have to figure out the slope and the y-intercept from this graph. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. That's the y-axis. Here's my line. Where they cross is the y-intercept. And that's as straight as I can get the line. So the y-intercept is that number. The slope is where we have to do the change of y and the change of x. So you want to pick 2 points. And since you can see these the best, I would pick that one and that one. Remember, this is the y, and the other number is the x. You'll also need to remember the rules for integers. Keep, change, change. So once you find the slope, you plug it back into the formula. And again, the y-intercept is where they cross. Number 9. What is the solution set for this inequality? Just like we did before, we're going to do the opposite, and we take the opposite of the constant first. So the opposite of plus 30 is minus 30. That makes those cancel. And the negative 6x comes straight down. The inequality symbol comes straight down. And this is negative 12 and negative 30. They have the same sign, so we're adding, which makes negative 42. And then we need to do the opposite of multiplying by negative 6, which would be dividing by negative 6 on both sides. But remember, there's a rule that if you divide or multiply by a negative, you have to flip the inequality. So now the alligator swims the other direction. And whatever you get for negative 42 divided by negative 6 will be your answer. Number 10. This week, Christian will practice soccer for 1 1/4 hours on Monday, 1 1/2 hours on Tuesday, and 2 hours on Wednesday. Next week, Christian will practice soccer for the same number of hours on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. What's the total number of hours Christian will practice soccer over these 6 days? So on Monday, it's 1 1/4. And I'm betting you could probably change that to a decimal. So on Monday, it would be 1.4 are like quarters. Tuesday, it's 1 1/2, which is 1.5. We'll go ahead and add another decimal there. And then Wednesday is just 2 hours. Remember to line up the decimals. And then it says he's going to do the same thing the next week. Not 6 more days of this, but 3 more days to make a total of 6 days. So if we add all of that up, we get 4.75. Then he's going to do it the next week, so 4.75, either add it again or multiply by 2 to get his total. Number 11, the net of a triangular prism is shown. Use the ruler provided to measure the dimensions of the net to the nearest ½ centimeter. You are going to have to use the ruler on the mock test. You're going to have to use the ruler on the STAAR test. So you probably need to find the ruler on your mathematics chart. This says we're using centimeter side, so use the centimeter side and you measure the triangle. You want to measure the height of the triangle. Then you want to measure the rectangle. And I bet that the base of the triangle is the same, but you might want to check. So measure it. And then we have to find the area. And the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. But there's going to be 2 triangles plus the 3 rectangles. And I'm pretty sure they're the same, so that'll be 3 times base times height to find the total surface area. Number 12, the price of a phone case was reduced from $30 to $24. By what percentage was the price of the charger reduced? I think that should say case. Remember that percent of change is new minus old over old. The new price is 24, the old price is 30, and we're going to divide by 30. And then in your final answer, you change it to a percent. You'll get a decimal, and then you change it to a percent. Number 13, on the way to the game, Coach traveled at an average speed of 60 miles per hour for 1.5 hours, then traveled at an average speed of 72 miles per hour for 2.5 hours. What's the total distance in miles that Coach traveled during this time? Well, first, we find how far he traveled in the hour and a half. Remember, per means multiply, so 60 times 1.5. Then we find out how far he traveled in the next 2.5 hours. Again, per means multiply, so 72 times 2.5. And then we add those two answers together. Number 14. Trevor flipped 3 coins during a probability experiment. The outcome of the first 30 trials are shown in the table. Based on the information in the table and how many of the next 150 trials will the outcome be exactly 2 of the coins showing heads? Okay. This is a prediction question. It's asking you to predict for the next 150 trials. This was not 150 trials. This was only 30 trials. So we're predicting. For predicting, we set up a proportion. A proportion is 2 fractions equal to each other. We want 2 of the coins showing heads. So the only one that showed 2 coins showing heads was this one. So that's 10 out of 30, and we're predicting for 150. That's the new total. And you just solve the proportion. Number 15, Cole bought 12.5 gallons of gasoline. There are approximately 3.8 liters in 1 gallon. How many liters of gasoline did Cole buy? Again, we can set up a proportion. The rate they gave us was 3.8 liters to 1 gallon. And we want to figure out how many liters are in 12.5 gallons. Notice that my gallons are lined up next to each other, and the missing number is my liter. Might be kind of easy to do. Look for a relationship. What would I have to do to 1 to get to 12.5? Then we need to do that on top to figure out our missing number. Number 16. Charlotte created a scale drawing of the school courtyard in art class. In the scale drawing, the length of the courtyard is 14 inches. The length of the actual courtyard is 112 feet. What scale did Charlotte use to create the scale drawing of the courtyard? Remember, if they're wanting a scale, that means one of them is going to have to be a 1, because a scale would be a unit rate. Again, this is a proportion problem. The rate they gave us was 14 inches to 112 feet. So we're probably wanting to know how many would 1 inch be. So I already know that that's going to be a 1. And then you solve the proportion. What would I have to do to 14 to change it to a 1? Then that's what you'd have to do on bottom to find the missing number. Number 17, the table shows the number of bottles of different kinds of soda sold at the game on Monday. If the concession stand has 240 customers on Friday, which prediction for Saturday is not supported by the data in the table? Again, prediction means we're going to set up a proportion. So we need a total for our chart, first of all. If you add all those up, you get 60. And I'm just going to put my predictions over here. They want us to predict for 240. What would I do to 60 to change it to 240? I could multiply by 4. So if I do that all the way up and just go ahead and make my predictions, I can read the answer choices. So I'm going to start down here at the bottom. 8 times 4 is 32. 23 times 4 would be 92. 12 times 4, 48. And 17 times 4 is 68. Now I can read my answer choices. The number of bottles of Sprite sold will be 16 more than the number of bottles of Orange Crush sold. So is Sprite 16 more than the Orange Crush? There will be a total of 140 bottles of Coca-Cola and Sprite sold. So if I add Coca-Cola and Sprite, do I get 140? The difference between the number of bottles of Dr. Pepper and the number of bottles of Orange Crush will be 36. So if I subtract Dr. Pepper and Orange Crush, do I get 36? D says the number of bottles of Dr. Pepper sold will be 5 times the number of bottles of Sprite sold. So Sprite was 48. If I multiply that times 5, will I get 68? Remember, we're looking for the one that is not. Number 18, which values from the list set is negative 20, negative 12, negative 10, negative 8, 0, and 2 satisfy this inequality? So you could try plugging in each one of these numbers into the inequality and seeing which one works. Or you could just solve the inequality. Let's just solve the inequality. Remember, we do the opposite. Find the constant or the single guy, start there. So the opposite of plus 4 is minus 4. That cancels. And negative 1/5 times x is 2. Then we need to do the opposite of multiplying by negative 1/5. So the opposite of multiplying would be dividing. But when we divide by a fraction, we always flip it and multiply. I'm going to put a times sign with a dot so that we don't get confused about the variable. So I need to multiply by negative 5/1 on both sides. So if I do that, then the 5's cancel, the 1's cancel, and x is by himself. And 2 times negative 5 would make negative 10. However, remember the rule that if you multiply or divide by a negative, then you have to flip the sign. The alligator has to float the other direction. So x needs to be greater than or equal to negative 10. Is 2 greater than or equal to negative 10? Which in this set are greater or equal to negative 10?